Lutna was a village hidden away deep in the heart of a dense forest, surrounded by towering hills that stood like silent guardians. The air was thick with the scent of earth and life, and the sound of laughter and song filled the air every day. It was a peaceful, vibrant place where the people lived close to the land, their homes built from clay and wood, their lives woven together through generations of tradition. The villagers had a deep respect for their customs, passed down by their ancestors, and their connection to the land was as old as the trees that surrounded them. Every day, they gathered to sing, dance, and share stories, keeping their spirits strong with the knowledge that they were bound by something greater than themselves, the village, the land, and their shared history. But behind the warm smiles and joyful faces, there was an unease that hung like a dark cloud over Lutna. Whispers could be heard in hushed tones, spoken only in the shadows of night or in the presence of elders. It was the curse, an ancient, unshakable shadow that haunted the village every 25 years. Each time, it took its toll. Many villagers would perish, leaving only one survivor, who would carry the weight of the curse until the next cycle began. The elders spoke little of it, but the fear was palpable in the eyes of the young and old alike. The curse was no mere superstition, it had woven itself into the very fabric of their lives. The villagers could not escape its grip, and no matter how hard they tried, the cycle of death, grief, and loss seemed to stretch on forever. It was the very air they breathed, the stories they told their children, and the cause of their deepest fear. As the years passed, the curse became more than just a tale, it became part of their identity. The elders would gather the young ones at night, telling them of the spirits that would come for them when the time was right. Remember, they would say, the curse comes to remind us of our sins, our betrayals, and the things we have left unfinished. The young ones would listen with wide eyes, the fear of the unknown settling into their hearts. As they grew older, the stories became their reality, and no one dared to question the truth of what they had been told. In the midst of this heavy darkness, there was one who stood apart, a young man named Kofi. His father, the village elder, had always been a beacon of wisdom and authority. Kofi, however, had a different spirit. He was hopeful, driven by dreams of a better future for the village. While others accepted the curse as their fate, Kofi refused to let it define him. There must be a way to break this cycle, he often said, his voice filled with conviction. He was determined to change the destiny of Lutna, to see his people free from the shadow that had loomed over them for so long. But his dreams were met with skepticism. The curse is ancient, Kofi, his father would warn. You cannot fight what is older than the land itself. Kofi's sister, Amma, stood by his side but was not as certain. Unlike Kofi, who saw only hope, Amma saw the dangers that lay ahead. She was wise beyond her years, and she questioned everything she had been taught. I believe the curse is more than just a story, she said one evening as the two of them sat by the fire. I believe there is something we do not understand, something hidden from us. Kofi looked at her, his face filled with confusion. What do you mean, Amma? He asked. She paused for a moment before replying, the villagers live in fear of the curse because they believe it has power over them. But what if it is not the curse that holds them, but their own belief in it? Amma's words lingered in Kofi's mind long after they had spoken. The more he thought about it, the more he began to see what she meant. There was something more to the curse than they had been told. The villagers' fear, their blind acceptance, seemed to fuel the very power that held them in its grip. But if that was true, could they free themselves by simply questioning what they had always believed? Kofi wasn't sure, but he was willing to find out. The one person who might hold the answers they needed was Elder Nyambi, the revered and feared village elder who had lived through the curse's many cycles. His knowledge of the curse was unmatched, and his grief over its consequences was known to all. He had seen the devastation it caused, and his heart had grown heavy with the weight of his own responsibility. Many believed that Nyambi held the key to understanding the curse, but he was not one to speak freely of its secrets. He kept to himself, his words always measured and his gaze far away. Kofi and Amma knew that if they were to uncover the truth, they would need to seek out Nyambi and ask him directly. As they pondered their next steps, they were drawn to the outskirts of the village, where Mama Nia, the mysterious woman who lived alone, had always been a subject of gossip. Mama Nia was an outcast, shunned by the villagers because of her supposed connection to the curse. No one knew much about her, but there were whispers that she had knowledge of the old ways, the forbidden rituals that had been lost to time. Some said she was a witch, others a healer, but one thing was certain: Mama Nia held secrets that the village had long ago forgotten. And it was those secrets that Kofi and Amma needed to uncover. She is not to be trusted, the elders would say whenever her name was mentioned. But Kofi and Amma were not afraid. They had come to realize that the village's fear of the unknown had kept them trapped, and if they were to break free, they would need to seek out the truth, no matter where it led. And so, they set off to find Mama Nia, hoping that she could help them unravel the mystery of the curse and the betrayal that had caused it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Kofi and Amma found themselves standing before Mama Nia's small hut. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and smoke, and the sound of the wind rustled through the trees. They hesitated for a moment, then knocked on the door. Mama Nia answered, her eyes sharp and knowing. "You seek answers," she said simply. "Come inside." They stepped into the darkness of the hut, their hearts beating faster with anticipation. Little did they know, the journey they were about to undertake would lead them to the heart of the village's darkest secret, the betrayal of two families, which had sparked the curse that had haunted Lutna for generations. But that was a story for another time, one that would be told in whispers and shadows, as Kofi and Amma's path grew ever more uncertain. Kofi and Amma sat under the shade of the ancient baobab tree, their hearts heavy with thoughts they dared not share with others. The village of Lutna, which had once seemed so full of life, now felt as though it were slowly suffocating under the weight of its own history. Kofi, always the hopeful one, could no longer ignore the deep sense of unease that had settled in his heart. "Amma, do you ever wonder if the stories we've been told are true? The curse, the spirits, everything?" he asked quietly. Amma, who had always been the more thoughtful of the two, nodded slowly. "I've been thinking the same thing," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something doesn't add up. The curse, it's too perfect, too neatly woven into our lives." Kofi's brow furrowed. "But what if it's all true? What if the curse is real and we are the last ones to carry its weight?" Amma shook her head, her eyes sharp with growing determination. "We have to find out, Kofi. We have to ask Elder Nyambi. There are too many questions, and no one is willing to give us answers. The villagers are afraid to even speak of it." The siblings exchanged a glance, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. They knew that by seeking the truth, they would be walking a dangerous path, one that could change everything. The next day, they found Elder Nyambi in his small hut at the heart of the village. The elder, his hair silvered with age and his face a map of lines carved by time and sorrow, sat cross-legged by the fire. His eyes glinted with wisdom, yet there was something in his gaze that made Kofi's chest tighten. "You've come to ask about the curse, haven't you?" Nyambi's voice was low, like the rumble of distant thunder. Kofi and Amma nodded, their breaths held in anticipation. Nyambi sighed deeply, the weight of centuries pressing on his shoulders. "The truth is a heavy burden, my children," he said softly. "The curse you speak of, it is no simple tale. It can only be broken by one who faces the spirits of the past. But understand this, such a quest comes at a great cost." Kofi leaned forward, his heart racing. "What cost, Elder? What must we do to end the curse?" Nyambi's gaze turned sorrowful. "To face the spirits is to confront the blood of your ancestors, the blood that has been spilled and forgotten. You will pay for the sins of the past, and the spirits will not forgive easily. Your journey may well end in darkness." Amma's voice was firm, her mind made up. "We are willing to face it, Elder. We will uncover the truth, no matter the price." Nyambi's eyes hardened with both pride and caution. You are brave, but be careful, for the truth may be more dangerous than the curse itself. As the days passed, the village grew restless. The villagers, who had long accepted the curse as part of their fate, began to murmur in fear. The children are asking questions, one villager said. They are stirring up the spirits. Do they not understand that some things are better left unsaid? Another elder, her voice trembling, added, we must not let them continue. If they anger the spirits, it will be us who suffer the consequences. The curse is a punishment, and it has been our burden for generations. Why challenge it now? But Kofi and Alma were not dissuaded. Their determination to uncover the truth was growing stronger with each passing day. They had decided to seek out Mama Nia, the village outcast, the woman who spoke in riddles and whose past was shrouded in mystery. It was said that she knew secrets of the curse that no one else dared to speak. Mama Nia lived on the outskirts of the village, far from the watchful eyes of the others. When Kofi and Alma arrived at her hut, they were met with a strange silence. The air seemed thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Mama Nia herself appeared from the shadows, her eyes gleaming with a knowing light. What brings you here, children of Lutna? She asked, her voice low but sharp. Are you ready to face what lies hidden in the past? Kofi swallowed hard. We need to know the truth, Mama Nia. We need to understand the curse. What is its origin? How can it be stopped? Mama Nia chuckled softly, a sound like dry leaves in the wind. Ah, the truth is never easy to find. It is buried in the blood of the past, in the betrayal of those who came before you. The curse was born of greed, of families bound by dark promises. You cannot break it unless you face the consequences of their actions. Alma frowned, her curiosity piqued. What do you mean by the blood of the past? Mama Nia's eyes glowed with a strange intensity as she spoke. You are tied to those families, to the blood that betrayed the spirits. You must confront the past, face the ghosts of those who caused this curse, and only then can you hope to end it. As the siblings left Mama Nia's hut, they were more uncertain than ever. The path ahead was unclear, filled with danger and the weight of their ancestors' mistakes. But they could not turn back now. They had already come too far, and the truth was waiting to be uncovered. The tension in the village continued to rise as the curse's anniversary drew near. Fear took hold of many, and rituals were performed to appease the spirits. Some villagers tried to stay hidden, refusing to acknowledge the curse, while others began to prepare for what they feared was the inevitable return of the curse's wrath. Within the village, divisions began to form. Some, like Kofi and Alma, believed that the curse was not a matter of fate, but of choice, a cycle that could be broken if only they dared to face the truth. Others clung to tradition, fearing that any attempt to change the course of their history would bring disaster. But Kofi and Alma knew one thing for certain, their journey had just begun. The truth was out there, and they would find it, no matter the cost. They could feel the weight of their ancestors' sins, the heavy burden that lay on their shoulders. Yet they also felt the spark of hope, that perhaps, by confronting the past, they could free their village from the curse that had bound them for so long. The question was no longer whether they should seek the truth. The question was, would the truth set them free, or would it destroy them all? As the cursed day drew near, Kofi and Alma stood at the edge of the village, the weight of their ancestors passed heavy in their hearts. The air felt thick, as though the earth itself knew something was coming, something that had been waiting for generations. Kofi's hands trembled as he clutched an old, weathered scroll, one that had been passed down through their family, full of secrets long buried. His mind raced, trying to piece together the scattered stories and hushed whispers he had heard in the village. He turned to Alma, who stood beside him, her face drawn with worry but her eyes filled with resolve. Alma, Kofi's voice was barely a whisper, we've uncovered so much, but something doesn't feel right. The curse, it's not just some old tale. It's a part of us. It's in our blood. Alma nodded, her expression serious. She had always believed that there was more to the story. The village had lived in fear of the curse for as long as anyone could remember, but now, they were learning that the curse was not some random misfortune. It was a consequence of a pact made long ago, a pact with an evil spirit. Kofi had learned that his great-grandfather, the first leader of their village, had sought power from the spirit to bring wealth and prosperity. But the deal had gone wrong, so wrong that when the pact was broken, the spirit's wrath had been unleashed, and the curse had begun, spreading death and suffering through their people. Kofi's heart sank as he faced the truth. The curse was a result of their family's choices, their ancestors' mistake. It was a burden they could never escape. The weight of betrayal and guilt pressed on him like a stone, and for a moment, he felt as though he could not breathe. "I can't believe it," Kofi muttered, his voice breaking. "We're cursed because of them, because of what they did." Alma stepped closer, her hand on his arm. "Kofi, you're not your ancestors. We are the ones who can end this. We have to keep moving forward. We can't let their mistake bind us forever." Kofi looked at her, his heart torn. "But what if the cost is too great? What if it's too much for us to handle?" Alma's eyes shone with a fierce determination. "Then we will face it together. We carry their shame, yes. But we also carry the hope for our people. We can end this, Kofi. You know we can." Kofi met her gaze, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope amidst the sorrow. They had come this far. They had uncovered the truth. Now, they would have to be brave enough to face it. As they made their way toward the sacred grove that night, the forest seemed alive with whispers. The wind carried the voices of ancestors long gone, and the trees seemed to bow under the weight of what was to come. Mama Nia led the way, her eyes reflecting a knowledge that went far beyond her years. She had warned them of the danger in seeking the truth, but now, there was no turning back. The grove was a place of deep mystery, feared by all, where the spirits of the past lingered like shadows. Kofi could feel the cold breath of the spirits on his neck as they walked, each step leading them closer to their fate. When they reached the heart of the grove, the air was thick with the weight of history. The trees seemed to close in around them, their branches like gnarled hands reaching for the sky. It was here, in the silence of the night, that they would confront the spirit that had haunted their people for so long. The spirit appeared before them, an ethereal figure shrouded in darkness, its form flickering like smoke. Its eyes burned with a fiery anger, and its voice echoed through the grove like a distant thunderstorm. "You dare to seek the truth," it boomed, its voice shaking the earth beneath their feet. Kofi and Alma stood frozen, their hearts pounding in their chests. The spirit's presence was overwhelming, filling the air with a sense of dread. But despite the fear that gripped them, they knew this was the moment that would decide the fate of their village. "I am the spirit of the curse," the figure declared, "and I will either take one of you as my sacrifice, or I will destroy this village entirely." Kofi's mind raced. This was it, the final test. The choice was theirs to make. His heart ached, knowing that the weight of the village's future rested on their shoulders. In that moment, his guilt overwhelmed him. His family's past had led them here, and it was only fitting that he should offer himself as the sacrifice to save the village. "I will go," Kofi said, stepping forward, his voice filled with a mix of fear and resolve. "Take me. End the curse with my life. I will sacrifice myself for our people." Alma's eyes widened in horror. She reached for him, her hands trembling. "No, Kofi. You can't. We can't let this be the end. We've come too far. You are not the one who should pay for what was done long ago." The spirit's eyes flickered, and for a brief moment, it hesitated. But just as it reached out to claim Kofi's life, Alma stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. "We will not let fear rule us," she said, her words ringing with power. "We will not let the past bind us. We demand that the curse be lifted, and we will stand together to make it so." Her words shook the spirit to its core. The very ground beneath them trembled as it began to waver between fury and respect. For the first time, the spirit seemed uncertain, caught between its wrath and a deep, unspoken admiration for Alma's courage. The spirit's voice was softer now, almost reluctant. "You do not understand, child. The curse was never meant for just one family. It is a punishment for the entire village, for their disrespect of tradition, unity, and honor. It is a price that must be paid by all." Alma stood tall, her eyes burning with the fire of determination. "Then we will make it right. We will come together and undo the wrongs of the past." The spirit's form began to shift, its energy swirling around them in a violent storm. But then, just as quickly, it began to fade. The curse was not just their burden, but the village's to bear. Only through unity, through the combined strength of their people, could they end the cycle of suffering. Alma turned to Kofi, her voice soft but filled with a newfound wisdom. "We are not alone in this, Kofi. It is not just our family's shame. It is the village's. Together, we will face it and break free." And so, the siblings, guided by Mama Nia's wisdom, led the villagers in a sacred ritual, a ritual of redemption. Each person, from the youngest child to the eldest elder, gathered together in the sacred grove, their hearts filled with hope and repentance. The ritual was long and arduous, but through it, they confronted their past mistakes and the darkness that had haunted them for generations. With each step, the village grew stronger, its unity breaking the chains of the curse, until, at last, the bond with the evil spirit was severed, and the curse was lifted forever. The villagers stood together, hands locked, hearts bound by the shared weight of the past and the shared hope for the future. As the spirit's form flickered and writhed in the shadows, something extraordinary happened. The strength of their unity surged forward, a force so powerful that it seemed to shake the very earth beneath their feet. In that moment, the community's bond, forged through generations of hardship and mutual support, became a shield. The spirit faltered, its dark presence trembling before the purity of their collective will. It was the ancestors' blood flowing through their veins that gave them strength, the wisdom of the elders whispering in the rustling of the leaves, urging them on. Alma, standing at the front, her eyes fierce with determination, felt the weight of her people's hopes pressing down on her. "We are one," she shouted, her voice steady, strong. "We will not let the curse break us any longer." Her words echoed through the night, reaching every soul in the village. And with that, the spirit recoiled, its power diminishing in the face of their unbreakable unity. With one final, piercing scream, it was gone, vanishing into the air like smoke lost in the wind. But even in their victory, there was no joy in their hearts. The cost had been too high. The village lay scarred, the faces of families etched with grief, their tears a river that could not wash away the loss. They had broken the curse, yes, but the land was forever marked by the price they had paid. Kofi, standing at the edge of the gathering, felt the weight of it all. He had seen his people suffer, and now, even in freedom, there was sorrow in every step. The villagers stood in silence, mourning those who had been lost in the struggle. Kofi's chest tightened with a deep, aching guilt. The blood of his ancestors ran thick with mistakes, and now it seemed the price had been paid. But as he watched Alma lead the village, standing tall despite the sorrow, he began to understand. The curse had been broken, yes, but the real challenge was what came after. How would they rebuild? How would they heal? Alma, with the wisdom of 1,000 generations in her gaze, turned to Kofi. "The curse is broken," she said quietly, "but peace will not come from mourning. It will come from the work we do now. Together." Kofi nodded, a small tear slipping down his face. The guilt was still there, but something new was growing inside him. A determination to make things right, to honor those who had fallen by ensuring their sacrifice was not in vain. "You're right," he whispered. "Together. In the days that followed, Kofi worked tirelessly beside the villagers, rebuilding what had been broken. The land, though scarred, was rich with the promise of renewal. They planted new crops, built new homes, and most importantly, they rebuilt the spirit of their community. Kofi found peace in the work, a quiet sense of redemption in the sweat of his brow and the labor of his hands. His heart, once heavy with guilt, now carried a new understanding. The past could not be undone, but the future could be shaped by the choices they made today. Alma, too, found her place. Her courage, her wisdom, had guided them through the darkest days. Now, she stood as the true leader of the village, not through force, but through understanding, respect, and the strength of her heart. "We have learned much," she said to the villagers as they gathered to celebrate their new beginning. "We have learned that unity is the key. Respect for one another, for our traditions, and for the land itself. We must never forget that it is our hearts, not our bloodlines, that define us." The village began to heal, though the scars would remain. But those scars, like the marks left by the sun on the earth, were a testament to their strength. The villagers, once divided, now stood together, their unity a force greater than any curse. There was hope in the air, hope that the future would be brighter, and the darkness of the past would no longer haunt them. Kofi stood at the edge of the village, watching the people dance and sing in celebration. His heart was full, not of sorrow, but of a quiet understanding. "It is not the bloodline that determines a man's fate," he said softly to himself, "but the heart and unity of a people." He had learned this truth the hard way, but now, it was a truth he would carry with him always. As the night grew darker, the sounds of the village's celebration filled the air, a symphony of joy and renewal. And in that moment, Kofi knew that the real victory had not been in breaking the curse, but in the strength they had found in each other. Together, they had overcome the darkness. Together, they would build a future of light. The moral of the story echoed in the hearts of the villagers, passed down through generations. No matter how deep the betrayal, how strong the curse, redemption was possible. The unity of the village, their willingness to sacrifice for the greater good, had broken the curse and brought them peace. The lesson was clear: community, truth, and courage were more powerful than any bloodline or curse. And as the moon rose high above the village, the villagers knew that their story was one of hope, a story that would be told for generations to come.